All right, guys, I'm going to do some of this with you and have you complete some of it on your own, just to kind of help you think through these pieces. So here we are. We're going to start with what we have learned about parabolas and circles. Write an equation for each of the following. Number one, what type of shape is that? It's a parabola. So parabolas are easiest graphed in vertex form, which is found by y equals the number a times, do you guys remember? Something squared plus something. Do you guys remember what the k is on the outside? Good. X minus h. Awesome. Now, do you guys know what h and k represent? The vertex. What's the vertex shown here? 1, 1. So I already know what h and k are. I can plug those in, and I have y is equal to some number times x minus 1 squared plus 1. Now, thinking about a, is it going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. How do you guys know it's going to be negative?
Because it faces down.
Good, it faces down. Any ideas based off of the way that this is graphed of how we could identify what a is?
It looks like negative.
It's negative. So let me go ahead and say a is definitely negative. How would you, that's right, Kate, but how do we know it's 4?
Because it's it moves down 4 units. So
Nice. If we go right 1, awesome, and down 4, we looked at yesterday how there's a pattern that works with parabolas, where if you go over 1, and if you go down 1 times a, you can get to the next point on your parabola. So if I went down 4, in this case, 1 times the value of a has to equal 4. So a has to equal 4. And it's because you went down 4 units. Now there's a different algebraic way that you could solve for that, but using that pattern, that's pretty nice to see. Just however much you go down, that's the value of a, or how much you go up. So a is 4, and this is my equation. Y equals negative 4 times x minus 1 squared plus 1. All right, that's the parabola. The circle we just learned. The standard form for the equation of a circle looks like x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals what?
A.
No? R squared. Good. So what pieces do I currently have? Well, I have everything. If I look at what the center is at, what point is the center at? Good, 1, negative 2. And if I look at what is R, I can go anywhere on the outer edge of the circle and just count the units. So what is R? 2. So now I can go ahead and pop these in. I would have x minus 1 squared plus y. What's going to happen after y? Good, it's going to be a plus 2 squared is going to equal to 2 squared. Or you could just call that 4. Number 3, it is at the halfway mark, but we can still use that equation. Zach?
Would it be x squared plus y squared? That equals, I don't know what 3.5 and 2.5 is, but it's something.
3.5.
9.25.
3.5 squared?
Is 9.25?
It's 12.25. But I would take that. That's great.
Thank you.
That's totally great. Because Zach recognized that the center was at 0, 0. So he said x minus 0 squared and y minus 0 squared just becomes x squared and y squared. And then the radius is 3.5 units. So I can just say it equals 3.5 squared. Or if you wanted to multiply it on your calculator, you could say x squared plus y squared equals 12.25.
Wait, how is it not 9.25?
Because of the way decimals work, you multiply down 15, 17, and then what do? Don't you move the decimal 2 places over? This is embarrassing.
You put a 0 under the 5.
You put a 0 under the 5, but
And
there's
you
something with
3
the,
times 5.
but don't you do something with the zeros?
It's
Yeah,
because 3 squared is 9 and 0.5 squared is 0.25.
5, 2, carry the 1, 2,
yeah, then you move the
12.25.
decimal
Oh, you just move
2
them at the end.
times.
12.25.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. I haven't done that in a long time. Thanks, Kate. I'm sure my son who's in second grade will be asking me that soon. All right, guys, 12.25. My kids always make fun of me because like I won't be listening to them. That's terrible. But sometimes I'm not paying attention and Samuel will ask me a question. My youngest who's 5, I'm like, Mom, because grandma will be coming at like 3 o'clock. And maybe it's like 9 in the morning. Like, Mom, how many hours until grandma comes? How many hours? And I'll say, I don't know, buddy. So I'm like doing the dishes and I'm not really paying attention. And if it's anything involving math, they'll go, Mom, you are a math teacher. You know this. You know how many hours. And I'm like, oh, okay, when I figure it out. So glad I reviewed how to do that. All right. On to number 4. What is the area of the circle shown on number 2? Oh, you guys can do this.
2 times pi squared. So 6.2.
Oh, Hunter found it on the calculator. What's the formula for the equation of a circle?
R pi times 2.
Yes, pi r squared. What is the radius in that top one?
2.
2. So we could even just keep this in terms of pi. What's 2 squared?
Pi 4.
Yeah, pi times 4 or just 4 pi. Hunter, you found it on the calculator, right? So, but we could do 4 times 3.14, determine the decimal equivalent, but leaving it in terms of pi is perfectly fine. Number 5, what is the circumference of the circle shown on number 2? How do we find the circumference of a circle? Zach?
Is it like the R 2R times pi, something like that?
2 times r times pi. Awesome. Or you could say diameter times pi because the diameter is always 2,
Oh, that's what it was.
2 radii. That would work. So you could say or circumference equals d pi. So since our radius is still 2,
So it's still 4 pi.
yeah, it still comes out to be 4 pi. This is one of those special cases where if you ever have a radius of 2, your perimeter and your circumference end up being the same number value, but area comes in units squared and circumference comes in just units. And we'll look at that in terms of a rectangle on the other page. All right, number 6, write the equation of a circle centered at 4, 2 with a diameter of 20. Remember the equation of a circle, that's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. If it says centered, what values are 4 and 2? Oh, that's where you're putting them into the equation, right?
Yeah.
They're your h and k. Zach?
Can I do the problem?
Oh, you know how to do it? I want to give people a chance to think about it. But then, yes, I'll come to you, okay? So, guys, think on this. Think what we would put in for r, because we're almost done.
10.
Zach!
Oh, sorry. I was, never mind.
All right, Zach, if the diameter is 20,
And then
how did you know the radius was 10?
So I just divided it by 2.
You divided it by 2, right? Because the diameter is 2 radii.
And then it would just equal 100.
So if 20 equals 2r, then r has to equal 10. Awesome. And then if I put in 10 squared, what did you say 10 squared was?
100.
100, perfect. So this whole thing comes out to be x minus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 100. All right, number 7. Number 7, go ahead, turn to your partner. See if you guys can think through this one together.
Yeah. Would it be
The first part? Yeah.
the radius is 5? No,
Okay, yeah, thanks for that.
because the circumference is already being times. So the
With
radius
the
is
10
25.
pi off.
Oh,
Circumference is d times diameter times pi.
yes.
I'll write it
So
right now.
diameter divided by 2 is 5.
Then you square R.
So it would equal 25.
Okay.
All right. Number 7. Can someone raise their hand and tell me, what did you get for the radius? And how did you get it? Yes. How did you get it to be 5? That's correct.
I guess.
Good guess. Well done. Circumference is 2 pi r. So if we know 10 pi is what the circumference is, we know 2 times pi times a number has to equal 10 pi. So what would that number have to be? It has to be 5. So we know that that r has to equal 5. If you are more equation inclined, you could just divide both of these pieces by 2 pi, and you see that the pi's cancel, and then you see that 5 is off. Or you could just kind of look at it and know that that's diameter times pi, so what's half that diameter? And then the other pieces would be x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals your radius squared. On to number 8. Write the equation of a circle whose endpoints of the diameter are at 0, 0, and 4, 6. Here's a hint. It might be helpful to sketch the graph first. So let's draw those points, 0, 0, 4, 6, which is right at the top of the graph. If the endpoints are on the diameter, then that means those are the outer edges of the circle. And I could kind of connect it like this. If this whole piece is the diameter, that means that the radius is going to be halfway through. For an equation of a circle, we need to know what that center is. If I have the diameter pieces, how could I figure out what the center is? Any ideas? What if this was on the final? Annabelle?
You have to like subtract like the distance, if that makes sense.
So you're saying like, if I look at the x's, between the x's, there's
Yeah, they're like half.
4 units and then take half of it, that would be good. So then it would be at 2. And then if I use Annabelle's way of thinking, the distance between the y's is 0 and 6. So half of that would be 3. That's a good way to think of it. The other thing that you could potentially use is use the midpoint formula. The midpoint just takes the x's, adds them up, and divides them by 2 to find the middle. And it takes the y's and adds them and divides by 2 to find the middle. So if I'm using those two outer points, I could call 0, 0, x1, y1, 4, 6, x2, y2. And I could do 0 plus 4 divided by 2 and 0 plus 6 divided by 2. And I find that that center is at 2, 3. Remember, the center of your circle is your HK. What's the other important piece in finding?
The radius.
I need the radius. Awesome. Let me zone in on this part of the circle. And let me do this. If I created a right triangle, this small part of the right triangle would be 2 units. This part of the right triangle would be 3. It's definitely a right triangle. Any ideas of what we could do to solve for r?
Like
Is the
Oh, that's if the sides are the same. If the sides are the same, then the hypotenuse is always the leg times root 2.
Is that cosine thing?
Oh, no, it's like Pythagorean theorem.
Yes, nice, Lily. It's the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's not as bad as you guys think. What would be the c value? Which?
13.
Oh, you're already figuring that out. Okay, good job. But I'm just meaning between 2, 3, and r. Which one should I fill in for c? R, because it's the hypotenuse. So it's the leg squared plus the leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So I have 4 plus 9 equals r squared. So 13 is the value of r squared. Now here's the beauty of this. I don't need to solve for r, because if I think about the equation of a circle, the equation of a circle is always x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals my radius squared. What is the value of my radius squared? 13. So I can just put that in. And then I found h and k. It's x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals my r squared, which is 13. Good question. Really good question. Let's try another one. Number 9, write the equation of a parabola that has vertex at 2, -3 and passes through the points 1, -1 and 3, -1. Here's your hint. It might be helpful to graph it first. So let's go to the vertex, which is at 2, -3. It passes through the points 1, -1 and 3, -1. So it's facing up like this. On your own, see if you can write just the equation for a parabola. It does have to be memorized by the final. We still have some time. But see if you can remember what is the equation of a parabola. All right, if you tried it on your own, check up on the screen, see if you got it. If you didn't try it on your own, just put a star, that eventually you'll need to have that memorized. But it's y equals a times quantity x minus h squared plus k. What does h and k represent? Vertex, awesome. Or you could think, oh yeah, that is the vertex, exactly right. The vertex we already know, it's at 2, -3. So I can go ahead and put those pieces in. X minus 2 squared minus 3. Do you think A is going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Positive, because it's facing up, right? If I was using that pattern that I know, I go over 1 up 2.
So it's 2.
Yes, so A is 2. Because remember, you always go over 1 up 1 times the value of A. So if 1 times the value of A equals 2, you went up 2. A is 2. All right, this next piece is going to help you for when we move into hyperbolas. You're going to have to be able to draw a rectangle and kind of look at its pieces. So let's practice working with rectangles. Graph the ordered pairs on the axis shown below. -3, 2, we go -3 up to 2, 3, 2. In fact, I'll label these because it might be helpful later. 3, 2, this one was -3, 2, 3, -1, and -3, -1. And now it says connect the 4 points on the graph to form a rectangle. Hopefully you guys know what a rectangle is. The opposite sides are congruent. It has 4 right angles. The diagonals are congruent as well, but we don't need to know that. And what is the area of the rectangle? Robert, you put it away. How do we find the area of a rectangle? Oh, come on, you guys aren't
That was
doing
like
this.
2 years ago.
But it's a rectangle.
That was still like 2 years ago.
Base times height.
Base times height or length times width. Perfect. And I know you guys can count. How many units is the
Maybe.
base?
6.
6. How many units is the height?
3.
3. So my area is going to be 6 times 3, which is 18. I could say square units or units squared. You could have just counted the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 square units. So that's the area inside the triangle.
Oh, jeez.
Perimeter. How do we find the perimeter?
Base times base
Base plus height? Yeah, just add all the spaces around it. So I had 6 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3. You might have known that it's 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So 2 times 6 plus 2 times 3. 12 plus 6 gives me 18. But this time it's not square units, it's just units because we would just be counting those lines all the way around. We would count 18. Number 14, draw in the diagonals of the rectangle and extend them the full lengths of the graphs. This is going to be really important for when we create hyperbolas. Do you guys know what the diagonals are of a rectangle?
So from -3, 1 to 3, 2.
Good. We're going to draw a line through the point -3, 1 and 3, 2. You could draw it dashed. That's fine. Or you could draw it solid. In a hyperbola, you're going to have to draw it dashed. And we have another diagonal through the point -3, 2 and 3, -1. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that all the way through. All right, that's done. Number 15, write the equation of the line for each of the diagonals. You should have 2 different equations, 1 equation for each diagonal. So let's start with the first diagonal. I'll just call it diagonal 1. And my diagonal 1 had the points -3, -1, and 3, 2. It is a line, so you want to be thinking about the equations of lines. What do you always need to find when you're find the slope? Awesome. How do we find the slope between 2 points? Annabelle?
Like the line one equal to over x and 1x2.
Awesome. So you could call it y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Whatever number you choose to go first, it just has to be first in the bottom as well. Then you call one of your points your first point, the second point your second point. And then you calculate what's the change in y over change in x. So I would do 2 minus -1 over 3 minus -3. What happens when you minus a negative? Positive. Good. So this is 3 over 6. What does that reduce to? 1/2. Beautiful. Now that's the slope. If you have a point, which we do, and a slope, what equation could you use to put in your pieces? Point slope form. Love it. So we would just do, remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. So I'd pop in those pieces. I'd pop in -3 for x1 and -1 for y1, and my slope as 1/2. And that would give me y minus -1 equals 1/2 times x minus -3. I could simplify that, and that would be y plus 1 equals 1/2 times x plus 3. If I asked you to put it in slope-intercept form, what would you do? Yep, distribute the 1/2 and then subtract the 1. Just get it in the form y equals mx plus b. I didn't though, I just said write the equation, and this is a valid equation. So you could just box that. All right, on your own, do the same thing for diagonal 2. Write the equation of the line, and diagonal 2 goes through the points -3, 2 and 3, -1. When you're finished, if you feel confident about it, you can go ahead and submit it. That's the second homework, is this critical thinking. So we did it together. You guys all have those points just as long as you submit that. If you're not confident, we're going to check it in a moment. Okay, you should have found the slope of this diagonal to be the opposite, was -1/2. And then point slope form would be y minus 2 equals -1/2 times quantity x plus 3. Or you could have used the other point and called it y minus 3 equals -1/2 quantity, or no, it would be y plus 1 equals -1/2 times quantity x plus 3. Any questions on that?